with anything wiggle.
All right, we're right at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to do a quorum check here. Erica, do we have enough members on to go ahead and get this meeting started?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So seeing that, I'm going to go ahead and call us to order, and I'm going to see if maybe Patrick would lead us in the pledge tonight.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Get out of the way of the flag here.
All right. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
Pledge
flag
allegiance
of
to
the United
flag
of the United States of America,
United States of
the
America,
Republic,
to
which
the
it
republic
stands,
for which
for which it
stands
stands,
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Right. With that, we'll go ahead and ask for a roll call.
Director Craig seems to be absent. Director Collin,
I'm here.
Director Jimenez,
Present.
Director Phillips is absent. Director Rocha,
here,
Director Silva seems to be absent. Alternate Vice President Pittman
Present.
and President Lopez.
Present. So we do have a
Christy
quorum.
Crummy,
We do have a quorum.
Erica, did you call
All
for
right.
Christy?
No, I didn't. Vice President Cromings, I'm sorry.
Yes,
And I believe Director Craig just joined us.
Okay. With that now in the record, I'll go ahead and announce that we do have translation services available. I'm going to ask folks to call 425-436-6345 with an access code of 444666. Si necesita traducción para esta junta, por favor, llama 1425-436-6345 con el código de acceso 444666. Gracias. All right. That's our translation services announcement. And we'll go ahead and kick this meeting off with our general manager and CAO comments.
Right, I have just two quick comments tonight, just to alert the board. Hopefully with the settlement of some of our backlog of issues around relocation in the city of Salinas, withdrawal notice, pending those things getting resolved in the next month, which we'll talk about at length tonight, we would like to recommend going back and restarting our strategic planning process. As you know, the board paused on that when the city issued their withdrawal because it was going to be difficult to plan without understanding what was going to be happening. So we're going to begin looking at possible facilitators, and we'll schedule a discussion with the board probably in October to talk about process and timing and some of the particulars, and we'll get that started. The other announcement, which is unfortunate, we have decided this year to cancel our all employees meeting, or what we call our communications dinner. I know a number of you had accepted invitations to attend that, and I'm very sad to say, I think because of the size of the room and the number of people, I mean, the overwhelming number of people we had sign up for it, we just felt that under the current COVID circumstances and with some of the announcements we saw today, it probably is not in our best interest to try to stuff everybody into a small room. So we're going to revert back to what we did last year, which was to have small outdoor events at one in the South County at Johnson Canyon Landfill, and then one at Sun Street for our administration and transfer station staff. So a small catering meal will provide lunch and issue awards and things like that. We will send out an invite to all the board members. If any of you want to swing over for lunchtime and share in the festivities, we will continue to present safety awards, employee of the year, and other things that we normally do at our communications dinner. But those will be now rescheduled as lunchtime events. And those are all the comments I have for tonight.
Thank you, Patrick. Any comments from members of the board of directors on those comments? Seeing none, I'm going to take it out and see if we have any public input on those comments. Seeing none, we'll close that and come back for department manager comments and just ask folks to jump in. Caesar, I see your hand up. We'll go with you.
All right, good evening, President Lopez and Board of Directors. Part of your supplemental handouts that was included in the package is the state fund letter that we received last week. Just a real brief update on solid waste industry. Refuse and recycling is the fifth most hazardous occupation, according to OSHA. They experience 35 deaths for every 100,000 employees they have, and they're 10 times more likely to have a fatality injury than the average worker. So last week we did do a follow up with State Fund, and based on our past fiscal year safety program, our XMOD, if you guys are familiar with the XMOD, 100 is pretty much the baseline, and anything above that is considered I guess highly exposure, and anything below that is considered a lower risk. And our XMOD due to our safety program and our injuries over the past year was at 69%. So that's actually a excellent number. Pretty much in the solid waste industry, if you end up at the 100, you're doing good. But for us to have a 69, we've been hovering around the 60, upper 60s and low 90s. I think we did have a year where we're at 105, but this is just a great, this just shows the great work that staff's doing out in the field, not only the field staff, but the administrative staff, and maintaining themselves safe out there and reducing the amount of claims we had. I think we had a total of 9 claims over the past year for all of our facilities that we run. That's landfills, transfer stations, the closed landfills. We do in-house construction jobs. And then we have the admin team that also goes out to the site. So to have 9 claims, and out of those 5 claims, I think 5 of them were COVID potentials and 4 were actually injuries. So we ended up with the next mod of 69, which is great. Shows a great culture, safety-wise at least. So it's a great job by all the employees and the safety committee to recognize safety issues and bring them to everybody's attention and modify training. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. Plus, the other good thing about that 69% XMOD is our rates receive a discount. We pay lower premiums due to our lower workman's comp XMOD. So just wanted to share that with the board. We did get this last week, and it's pretty exciting. At least for myself, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Caesar. Any questions from directors? All right, I'm going to go ahead and quickly ask Erica. One, I want to recognize that Liz Silva has joined us, director from Gonzalez, and then maybe ask you to bring over the cell phone number at the top of the list on the attendees. I believe that's Supervisor Phillips, if I remember his cell phone number correctly. Perfect.
So, Director Phillips, can you hear us? You should be able to speak now.
It looks like his line's still muted. Can you unmute that, Erica?
I can ask him to unmute it, but he would have to do that on his end.
I believe *6 is to unmute John. *6. Okay, we'll let the record reflect that he's with us. I think that was the key there. Wanted to make sure we had him here. So with that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Erica.
Sorry, President Lopez, it looks like we just lost him.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, well, if it comes back as the same number, we know that's him. Or it could be Patty's iPad. I've seen that show up at meetings before too. So if you see Patty's iPad, that's John. All right. So continuing on, I know we finished up with Caesar's comments. Are there any other department managers who wish to share news with the board this evening? All right, seeing nobody rushing in, we'll go ahead and wrap that portion of the agenda, see if there's any public input on department manager comments. Hearing none, we'll move forward into our general public comment, or I'm sorry, I always skip this one, board director comments. Let's go ahead and use the raise hand function, see if anybody's got general comments for the good of the order tonight. I see a hand up from Rob Cullen.
I'm going to move out of my screen here real quick. And what I wanted to show you a picture of is the King City Rotary Club this past weekend did a trail and riverbed cleanup on the backside of San Lorenzo Park. And while San Lorenzo Park didn't have a lot of trash, the riverbed, because 2 weeks prior, they stopped the releases from the dam. So the riverbed was totally dry. And I wish we would have opened up that lid. That dumpster is full of stuff. And one of the unique things that was found to the left there was a kiddie pool. And then we took out 14 tires, including, and I think it's at the top right there, or it might be behind. No, it looks like the top right. There was a huge tractor tire, and the path to the river, it was almost about 3/4 of a mile walk back to where we needed to bring those. And I just wanted to give kudos, not just to King City Rotary Club, but our high school group Interact participated as well. And in addition to that, I'm going to try to get rid of my background if I can figure that out. In addition to that, I just wanted to give a special thank you, excuse me, to the Solid Waste Authority, Patrick Matthews, for bringing the trash bags and the gloves, and then to Waste Management. I see Kristen is on, and a thank you for the usage of that dumpster, and as well as King City and Bloom, which participated as well. So it was a great event, all told. And all right, I'm going to get rid of my background there. So that was one thing. And then I also just wanted to just echo a couple things. Patrick, in your comments, you talked about the strategic planning effort. And I just wanted to add just quick 2 cents on it, that for many years, we did that strategic planning process. And it really helped us kind of, as a board, stay on the same page and to think, helped us to think in the mid and longer term. It really was helpful. And I get that the last couple years, because of various factors, it made sense to put a pause on the strategic planning effort. But I'm really happy to hear Patrick say that we're taking a look at RFPs and bringing in a new person to do that, because this is a critical time, as we all know, and to have a neutral third party to help have some discussions amongst our board, I think will be really helpful. So I wanted to thank Patrick for that. And then I also need to make a comment. So I own an insurance agency, and okay, so that's 69% X mod. So the lower the number, the better. And quite honestly, Caesar, I need to hire you to go to a lot of my clients. I mean, I've got restaurants, retail stores, hardware stores. I've got many businesses that are above 100. And that's when you start getting surcharges. I mean, to get 69% on a solid waste authority is just astounding. I'm at a loss of words. I would be willing to bet that if we took all of the landfill operations and other industries in the solid waste industry, I'd be willing to bet that the average is somewhere between 105 to 115 would be my guess, because it does not take much at all, a few little minor accidents, injuries, to get above 100. So 69%, man, my hat goes off to you, Caesar, and all of your team and all of the efforts that you've done. Just absolutely phenomenal. I'm almost at a loss of words. So I will stop there. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else? All right, seeing no hands up, what we'll do is go ahead and open up for general public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to share comments regarding items not on today's agenda. We ask that you use the raise hand function. *9 will raise your hand if you're on a landline and let us know you wish to be recognized. On most of your Zoom devices, the raise hand function is at the bottom of the screen. Seeing no hands going up and knowing that we had no pre-written comments come in by email, we'll go ahead and close our public comment portion of our agenda and head into our consent agenda, which consists of items 1 through 11. Are there any members of this board who wish to pull an item from consent? Seeing none, I will see if the public has any items they wish to be pulled. Please use the raise hand function as well. Seeing none, we'll close that, bring it back. I'll entertain a motion to move the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Cromings.
Thank you, VP Cromings.
Second.
Did you get the second there, Erica? I heard it. I just wasn't sure who it was.
It's Anthony. Road.
Anthony, perfect. Okay, so
Director
we got a
Rocha.
motion from Cromie, second from Rocha, and we'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote.
Director Craig? Director Craig?
Looks like she may have, whatever.
She's on, but she might not be able to unmute.
Well, it looks like she's taking herself off mute, but it looks like her microphone may not be working.
Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to her. Director Collin?
Aye.
Director Jimenez?
Yes.
Director Phillips is absent. Director Rocha?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Aye.
Alternate Vice President Tipton?
Aye.
And Vice President Cromines?
Yes.
President Lopez?
Yes.
And Director Craig? Oh, there she is. It's connecting.
Connecting the audio.
Aye.
Thank you.
Nice. All right. Perfect. With that, item passes, or the consent items pass. We're going to head into our first and only presentation for the evening, an annual tonnage and operations report for fiscal year 2020-21. That's going to be Caesar. So we'll go ahead and give you the floor, Caesar.
All right, good evening once again, President Lopez and Board of Directors. This evening, I'm here to present the annual tonnage and operations report for fiscal year 2021. We've done this every year, I believe, for the last 12 years. So it's good information, good historic information for us to observe. Next slide, please. So the historic landfill tonnage, as you can see, in 2014, when we took over the Johnson Canyon landfill, actually December 2014, we took over the Johnson Canyon landfill. On January 1st, 2015, we stopped the importation of waste from South Santa Clara County. At that point, our tonnage, annual tonnage was about 235,000 tons coming in and imported waste. And as you can see through the graph, in 2021, our actual landfill tonnage is 231,463, which is pretty close to where we were at with importation of waste. So you can see our waste in the region, at least in the authorities region, has continued to increase year over year. Next slide, please. So the authority service area, tons processed. So overall, we processed 231,308 tons. That's actual landfill tonnage. That's landfill that ended up, trash that ended up at the Johnson Canyon landfill and was actually buried at the landfill. Overall, though, 1,005. So we had about almost another 100,000, 90,000 actually, another material that showed up at Johnson Canyon landfill that was not landfill. Next slide, please. So diverted tonnage. Our biggest program out there at this point for diversion is our organics program. So it's the single largest diversion program that we have. This includes the green waste, cannabis, food waste, packaged food waste, such as the bag salads from the ag processing plants, and other diversion makes up 16% of that. So overall, green waste is the largest diversion program we have at 79% of the overall tonnage diverted is green waste. HHW makes up 1%, diverted wood makes up 4%. And next slide, please. The other diversion is made up by metal, cardboard, mattress, CRTs, which are televisions pretty much, plastic, tires, carpet, clothing, mixed paper, stuff that goes out for donation, and glass. That makes up the rest of our diverted materials besides the major ones that we showed in the previous slide. Next slide, please. So origin of the 231,000 tons, Salinas makes up 66% of the tonnage that we landfilled at Johnson Canyon landfill. They're followed by Monterey County, which makes up 13%. The South County cities, Soledad at 6%, and Gonzales at 5%. Greenfield's at 5%, King City's 5%, and then out of district is less than 1% of the tonnage landfill at the Johnson Canyon landfill. Next slide, please. Holon Road. So we took over the Holon Road transfer station in September of 2016. You may recall that was previously operated by Waste Management, and before them it was Recology. So in 2016, we decided to take over that operation to go ahead and have some cost savings. Pretty much, we were able to do the operation cheaper than contracting it out. We had more control over the projects and movement of materials than we did before under contract. Next slide, please. So here's a historic transportation trip. 15 was the last year that Waste Management ran that facility for us. At that point, they had received 7,200 trips, customer trips. 2016 and 17 was the first year we took it over. And that first year, we ended up doing 8,800 trips. And it continues to climb, as you can see the graph going forward. It's climbing. It kind of got steady between 17 and 2020. But during COVID, we were very, very surprised. We had our busiest year. And as you can see, the trips last year, even during COVID, we had 16,575 trips. Overall, we saw a 24% increase in customer trips from one year to another. Next slide, please. Tonnage has been pretty consistent. I think when the last year Waste Management operated the facility, they were at 17,295. First year we operated went to 19,800. And then from there forward, it's been kind of floating around 21,000, 20 tons. Consistent there tonnage-wise. We did see an increase of about 600 tons year over year. Next slide, please. So here's just a little comparison of Holon Road Transfer Station since 2015-16 when we took it over. So we've seen an increase in trips at that facility since we took it over of 27%. So we pretty much doubled up the trips out there. Tonnage has increased about 23%. So that facility is a lot busier than it used to be at the time we first took it over. All right, move over to the Johnson Canyon landfill. Next slide. There is a similar graph here, customer trips at Johnson Canyon landfill. We took over Johnson Canyon December 22nd of 2014. Our full fiscal year initial year was in 2015. We back then and slowly increased up about 5,000 trips a year, increased roughly, and then kind of flattened out between 2017 and 2020, increasing about 1,000, 2,000 trips a year. Last year, 2020, 2021, during COVID, just like Holon Road, we saw a huge spike in customer trips. We ended up taking in an additional 10,000. So we went from 44,000 to 54,500 trips. We saw a 22% increase in trips year over year at that facility. Next slide, please. Our tonnage has been pretty consistent as well. We started off at 240 when we took over that operation. It jumped up to 277. It kind of jumped up about 20,000 tons a year after, and then kind of stayed pretty flat, 298, 299, 295. Last year, same thing. We saw an increase. We went from 295 to 328,000 tons. That's an 11% overall tonnage handled at Johnson Canyon year over year. Next slide, please. Here's the comparison of 2015-16, fiscal year 15-16 to today. So from then to now, about 6 years roughly have passed, and our trips have increased 82% at Johnson Canyon, and our tonnage has gone up about 37%. So everything's trending up, and we're getting busier. So we'll move over to the Sun Street Transfer Station. Next slide, please. Here's a similar graph to the trips. We've been there since 2005, and it started super slow. And as we build up the customer base, we've been hovering in the 60s to 70s, probably between 2010 and 2015-16, and then started jumping up to the 80,000 range, and then 91,000. Last fiscal year 19-20, we had 97,000. But due to COVID, our numbers at Sun Street over the past fiscal year went from 97,000 the previous year to 116,000 this past year. And I just want to let the board know that's a 19% increase in just customer trips year over year. And that customer trip count does not include the people that use the free drop off in the MRC, in the material recycling center. So anyone that comes in and uses a free drop off does not go over the scale because they're not creating a payment transaction. So if they use the MRC or they go to the HHW, that's not in these trips here. So I estimate that count to be probably an additional 30 to 40,000 trips that use the free service or the HHW. So realistically, this number is probably hovering around 150,000 trips over the past fiscal year, which is a huge increase compared to the previous year. Next slide, please. Same thing with the tons, hovering around 100,000, roughly 103 to 107. That's about where we hover. That's pretty close to maxing out on a daily basis. So that's why you see the numbers kind of hovering around the same range, just because that's just we're permitted for 400 tons a day, and Monday through Friday we get pretty close to that 400 tons a day. What brings down the average is Saturday. Saturdays we get pretty much just residential and commercial customers, so we end up at about 150 tons a day. So we average about, if we do 6 day over the year average, it's about 340 tons. If we do a 5 day average just through the weekday, we probably do about 385, 390 tons a day. Next slide, please. And here's the same thing, just a comparison of where we were 6 years ago and where we're at today. We've seen an increase of 58% trips since 2015 and 16. And then our tonnage has been flat, but pretty much maxing out the facility basis. So that number's not going to jump up a lot compared to the other facilities. Next slide, please. All right, Johnson Canyon Landfill, SB 1383 Organics. This is what we've been talking about for quite some time now with the board. I think we started about 4 or 5 years ago, preparing our board members for this regulation coming in. So the previous slide that was up on the screen showed the depackager. That's the building the board authorized for us to construct and install last fiscal year. So that's the covered enclosement that we put up there to receive all the agricultural, the food waste loads under, and then they get processed underneath there and eventually get fed into the depackager and diverted into the compost area. Next slide, first. So the depackager over the past fiscal year processed 2,800 tons, or 5.6 million pounds, to kind of put it in perspective. That's how much material came to that operation over the past year. That's a great number in my opinion, and it's only going to continue to grow. Out of that 2,800 tons that was actually diverted, 4.6 million pounds actually got diverted to the compost. The remainder was debris that couldn't go through to the ASP or plastic films or cardboard or stuff like that went elsewhere. But actual organics that got diverted out of those 2,800 was 2,305. Green waste, we diverted 45,236 tons of green waste. That's our single largest organics diversion program. Sorry about that. And wood waste was 2,300 tons. And we also got approval from the board to start our C&D sort station, which we hope to have operational this year. We do have the equipment on site, but due to COVID, the installers, who are a company out of Ireland, have not been able to come over to the States to finish up the installation of that equipment due to COVID. So everything kind of stopped back then. And we've been waiting for everything to open up and allow them to travel into the States. But right now we're working on a game plan to have local labor come in and assemble that sort line for us so we can get that C&D sort station up and running and begin diverting a lot of our C&D, which is made up of pretty much 80 or 90% clean wood. Next slide, please. All right, another thing we want to bring to the board's attention is our organics processing RFP. Currently, Vision Recycling is our contractor at the facility. They've held the contract since 2011. SBR has constructed and added both the depackager and an ASP system, or area created static pile system, since it was last bid. So we plan on releasing a new RFP this fall to competitively bid our largest diversion program. So we figured it's been about 10 years since we put it out to bid. So we're going to put this out to bid and get more players involved in this, and hopefully get a little better marketing on this as we start evolving into SB 1383 and the mandate to divert organics from the landfill. We will also do an in-house competitive bid to operate the facility and see where we end up with once we compare them to the vendors that will also be bidding this. We have kind of tested the waters and talked to other vendors out there, or other composters, and there seems this to be very, hopefully we get some good bids to consider and bring back to the board later this year. Next slide. So this is just an overall view of the increases since the fiscal year 15-16, and I'm showing here the facility over on the far left column, and then you see the fiscal year the staffing was last established, total employees at each facility, and just the increase in trips, increase in tonnage. So Holland Road, we took it over in 16-17, and we had 3 employees, our driver, and two laborers, and we've increased 71% trips and 24% tonnage. Johnson Canyon, we last increased the staffing there in fiscal year 19-20, and we have a total of 10 employees. Since then, we've increased tonnage by trips by 39% and tonnage by 21%. The transfer station, the last time they had a staffing change, it was in 17-18, and we have a total of 14 employees. We have needs 6 version workers, which are our laborers at the facility. Since then, increased trips have been 17%, and tonnage has increased 3%. Our HHW, we have 4 employees there. The last time we upped that staffing was in 07-08, and they've seen a 56% increase in trips and a 43% increase in tonnage that they've handled since then. The depackager was established in 1920, fiscal year 1920, and they had 2 employees, and they're 2 diversion workers. So those are once again, those diversion workers are our titles for our laborers. The field ops, they take care of the closed landfills and the construction and maintenance of the facilities. We upped them last fiscal year, 2020 and 2021, and we have a total of 3, and they handle the 3 closed landfills, the 1 active landfill, and all the maintenance around all facilities. Cashiers, 2020, 2021, we have 5. Maintenance, 2 mechanics. We added 1 in fiscal year 2021, and we added another 1 for this current fiscal year, so we have 2. And we are seeing them pretty much, we have offsetted our vendor costs by hiring these mechanics, and we definitely ended up, I think, reducing our costs. I think our cost for the mechanic last year was about 180,000, 109,000 loaded, fully loaded, all benefits, all costs. And we did reduce our outside maintenance costs by over 200,000 easy. I'm going to say probably more like 250, 275. So really paid off, and we're hoping to do the same with the second mechanic that we added this year. And then field supervisors. We have a North County supervisor that handles the Sun Street transfer station and the HHW, and we have a South County supervisor who handles Johnson Canyon, all the operations of Johnson Canyon, and the Holland Road transfer station. So total overall, we have 45 field employees, and since 15-16 overall, we've seen a 67% increase in trips and a 19% increase in tonnage. So I bring this chart up. I like this chart. I like to bring it up because it is something for us to consider as we increase trips. And tonnage ain't too much. We can handle tonnage, but the trips, that's people that we have to work with and educate and train and show them how we do it. And then safety comes into a factor. So I am looking at coming back to the board sometime this probably mid-fiscal year and asking for revisions potentially for the depackager staff, because they do specialized work. And I think I'm gonna diversion or request that we add a diversion worker. We have a 1 and a 2 right now, but add a 3, which is a little higher pay because they do specialized work. So it's only fair that we compensate them properly because they are working with specialized equipment. So I'll be bringing that back to the board for consideration in January. And then also potentially adding some more help in South County, at least at Holland Road. We are getting a lot more customers at Holland Road. So I do want to make sure we have plenty of staff to help out the southern operations, and then potentially Canyon. So we have seen a huge increase at Johnson Canyon. And with that being said, the other update I do have is over the past fiscal year, we've had very many staffing challenges, not only due to COVID, but also health issues, just personal health issues. At one time, out of the 5 operators I have at Johnson, I was down to 1. I had 4 out at one time. It was very difficult, but I did have a lot of flexibility within our staff that moved from drivers to operate landfill and have cross-training programs where those guys were able to cross-train and jump into these operations as well. But we run lean and mean for many years, and it's kind of catching up to us now as we've grown. We've protected that customer base, and our tonnage continues to grow, and our trips actually is what I'm really concerned about. So I will be coming back to the board probably in January just to discuss potential changes and increases the following year, probably changes mid-year for at least the depackaging staff, and then potentially request changes for the following fiscal year for consideration. So just a heads up to the board on that. We just want to make sure we remain safe out there. We have plenty of work. We don't want to overwork our employees, because when you overwork them, that's when they start taking shortcuts. That's when they get injured, and then that's where our costs really go up, whether it's a serious injury or just people losing employment or to workman's comp. So just a real quick heads up on that. Just want to keep the board appraised of that. So next slide, please. All right, and with that, this is a social distance picture we took last year at the employee safety lunch, kind of similar to what Patrick spoke about at the beginning. Not all of us are there because we're rotating in and out because it's during a work day, but pretty neat picture. We're kind of social distancing and we're all ninjas. You guys can try to guess who's who there, but anyways, any questions from the board, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ninja Caesar. We appreciate that. Great work out there, everything that you put together. Let's see if we have any board director comments to start on this data-rich presentation. All right, let's take it out to the public. Any public input? Remind the public that *9 will raise your hand, and raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. All right, see none, we'll bring it back. Thank you, Caesar, for that presentation. I really appreciate data and the fact that you were able to keep it all very concise in those slides with incredible changes and numbers is really cool. So thank you for bringing that forward for us to really sink our teeth into. I remember the long conversations we had about the mechanics positions. So hearing that those are paying off for you, it's great to know that all came to fruition in the way that you expected it to, and look forward to more success for you and your team while keeping that X factor down, right, Rob? Injuries, all right. So with that, that's just an informational item. We'll consider it received. Thanks, Caesar. And head into item 13, a discussion on the construction of an outdoor education center at Johnson Canyon Landfill. And we'll kick it over to Mandy.
Thank you, President Lopez, members of the board. I think I'm ahead of my presentation here. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you, Rosie. So we're looking for board support and input for the construction of an outdoor education center at the Johnson Canyon Landfill. The executive committee has received this similar presentation at the August meeting and provided valuable input and support for the project. The authority school education program was expanded several years ago when the board approved additional funds to enhance the reach of funding in-person, hands-on educational programs. With SB 1383's emphasis on organics recycling and edible food recovery, staff is proposing to develop and construct an outdoor education center at the landfill to continue the program's hands-on learning experience. With the impending move of the Sun Street facility and lack of allocated space at Madison Lane transfer station for an education center, staff would like to reestablish a center at the landfill that would include indoor and outdoor meeting spaces and a demonstration training facility similar to the garden that we have at Sun Street right now. The education center would help to expand our facility tours, which were popular pre-COVID, recycling presentations, composting workshops, garden demonstrations, carbon sequestration projects, and other possible new educational training programs we will be required to provide with 1383. Next slide, please. So we have scouted out 3 possible locations at Johnson for the education center. As indicated here on the map, all 3 options are located to the east of the landfill and composting operations. The first option, option A, is the Hilltop Depackager as it sits right next to the depackaging facility. Option B was the water tank fields location, and option C was the big tree. Each location had its pros and cons, and each location requires site prep and improvement work. Next slide, please. So options A and B were both not selected, but they were not selected for several reasons. Option A sits next to the depackager, as I just mentioned, which is actually a great location, but it's a very windy since it sits right on the hilltop. And it's also extremely close to the existing truck traffic and operations parking area. So not necessarily a great spot for kids to bring for tours. And actually option B, which was our first choice, but it sits in the floodway for the drainage area for a dry creek bed that runs along this side of the property. So this area would not work. Next slide. So obviously that leaves us with option B, the big tree. This is our final location. The big tree is a big, beautiful oak tree, which would hopefully provide some nice shade. It also sits outside of the floodway for the drainage area and also has access to some water and enough space to house the approximately 2,000 square foot education center plus our demonstration areas that we'd like to plan for. Its secluded location is out of the way of the landfill operations, and it's a perfect location for the center, but it does still have a slight view of the landfill, which is that orange arrow in the picture there. Next slide. The initial design concept is for a semi-permanent center to be constructed out of 5 40-foot by 8-foot storage shipping containers that will be retrofitted and reconstructed to form a classroom, which would be the 3 containers there in the green box, an exhibit hall, and also an office and storage space. And then that would create the shaded outdoor training courtyard. Since this is the preliminary plan, the center would most likely be reorientated to incorporate that big, beautiful tree into the layout of the center. Obviously, we would use recycled content or reused materials to be incorporated into the design and feel of the center. Solar panels would be the source of power. And we have considered a septic system, but due to the expense for new septics and lack of water on the site, we are looking at purchasing a higher end portable restroom trailer. So think similar to something you may have seen at a special event or maybe a wedding, and then we would have that serviced on a regular basis. As I mentioned already, this location will require minor pad and road improvements, as well as creating a space for a small parking area. A base rock foundation will need to be constructed to level and stabilize the center. The site preparation and some of the center construction or installation work would be conducted by our in-house staff operations that Cesar just mentioned in his presentation. The purchase and possible retrofit of the storage containers for the center would be conducted through a formal request for bids process. Next slide, please. So this is just a sample image of what the center could look like. This, of course, is not an exact rendering, but gives the basic idea for the design, feel, and layout of the center and how the containers could be configured to create that courtyard in the middle. It also would create a nice wind block because it still is windy out at Johnson. Next slide. So staff is researching options for the purchase and construction of the center, and we are looking at that by either contracting directly with the storage container company that would provide the retrofitting and full build installation services, the authority completing and retrofitting the work in-house, or a combination of the two. The initial quotes that we did receive back range from $59,000 for the purchase of 5 unfinished containers up to $250,000 for 5 complete containers, which is obviously on the high end, but finished containers, meaning there's installation, drywall, windows, doors, HVAC. It's a complete center already ready to go. So based on these ranges, we're estimating Up to $250,000 would be needed for the entire project. Again, a competitive bid process would be utilized to select the most cost-effective option for building the center. And if supported, a budget request will be included in the annual capital improvements budget schedule for the September board meeting. And that is the end of the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, I am all ears and happy to help answer.
Thank you, Mandy. Let's start with raised hands. Anybody want to give some input? I see a hand up, and I think that's the judge. So, Judge, I believe *6 will unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, I'm on. I couldn't get on there for a while. I'm going to have to move to Gonzales or Greenfield so I can get internet service, I think. So can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
Yeah, I on this one, I just have a concern about spending $250,000 down there in Johnson Canyon, only because it's kind of a remote location for most of us, especially in North County and Salinas. We got 25 mile drive to get the kids down there to view this. So I just have a concern based on the locations where it's tough to get kids to, but that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other folks want to jump in? I see Mayor Craig's hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry for my technical difficulties earlier. I apologize. I like the concept of it, but I do have to say, like, the quotes between 59,000 and 250,000 are really vast. And I agree with the Supervisor Phillips that $250,000 on a project that's down in Johnson Canyon, that's a lot of money. Like, I'd feel much more comfortable if it was 110 or if it was 59 or something along those lines. So I just think that that range is so great that I feel better about having the RFPs come in and then try to figure out a more realistic approach to how to build it. $250,000 is a lot of money, and I'm a little concerned about the wide range between 59 and 250. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Craig. Anybody else? All right. Well, I'll jump in and say, I know the location is sort of a unique one given where our traditional footprint has been. But again, for a lot of folks, I'll share that taking somebody out to that landfill for the first time and them actually seeing the process and seeing what it looks like in person is impactful. And so I think having something there on site where folks can visit and experience the work that we do as part of that visit is critically important. And so while it's out of the way, I think as speaking in a collective voice, that's kind of in the long run what we've always wanted, right? Away from community centers. And so given that that's where our trash ends up, our resources end up, right, Mandy? I do think that it's an appropriate location for a site. Again, the cost of those spreads, I share that concern about. That's a big spread, and having a better idea, in terms of what the cost is going to be through the RFP process is something that I look forward to, because I do know that you can get a premium builder or you can get somebody, again, bare containers, and we'll see what folks come up with. We know that the economy, and right now you can't even find a contractor, right now. If you've got somebody to do this, they probably say, okay, you're 18 months out on initiation of the project, given my recent experience. So I would estimate that, the numbers might fluctuate even between the time that we receive a bid and the time we actually contract it. But I'm comfortable moving forward with the RFP process to see what we're really dealing with in terms of numbers. So that's sort of where I'm sitting. Anybody else want to give input on this presentation? All right. Seeing nobody jumping in, I think we've given them. Patrick, I see your old school hand up there. We'll give you the floor.
Right. Well, yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Tonight was not really to approve a project, just to get board support to go forward with an RFP and actually to to evaluate the costs and then come back with something more formal and a formal budget request. So that will come, at a future meeting, either in September or October, after we do that work. And there is the reason for the variation is Mandy and her staff went out and looked and talked to different manufacturers of these. And these are containerized, these are sea containers, right? You've seen a lot of these popping up in modern design nowadays. It's a lower cost way to build buildings. It's like a modular building, only it's a sea container. And so some of the manufacturers come back and they can do everything, windows, insulation, electricity, and so we did get higher quotes for some of the, what I call Cadillac designs. And then others were simply, we can provide you with the shell system and the right cutouts for your for basic windows and combining units together to create single rooms. And those would be, lower cost systems, but they would take more staff time. And the goal here for us was to try to structure this project around the wintertime when our operational staff are a little less busy and can dedicate some additional time to doing some of this work in-house. So all of that, I appreciate the comments, and definitely all those concerns will be brought back once we receive some quotes and we harden up these numbers.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Anything else that you're looking for from this group tonight, Mandy?
No, that was it. I'm happy to come back with the results of the RFP and let the board know where we're at.
Great. All right, seeing no additional hands up, I'll see if we have any public input on this item. Seeing no hands up, we'll close the public comment portion, bring it back and head into our next item. Thank you very much, Mandy, for that informational presentation. We're going to go with appointment of board representative to the Salinas Valley Recycling Advisory Committee. Patrick.
So this is a fairly simple request. When the board reformed our advisory committee to be a broader organization with representatives from not just citizens, but from various industry sectors that are significant contributors to our solid waste and resource stream. One of the terms in the formation of the bylaws for this group was that there would be a appointee of the board that would sit on this advisory committee. So it'd either be the president himself or an appointee. So we discussed this with the EC. The recommendation is to bring it back for a full board discussion, primarily to see if there are volunteers that would be interested in sitting on the advisory committee meetings, which right now are scheduled for every other month. They typically are between an hour and a half long. Right now they're via Zoom, but again, we hope to eventually reconstitute those as live meetings in the coming months. And I'll leave it at that. Let's see if there's the board like to entertain a discussion over either volunteering or being appointed to sit on this group.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, normally it is the president. Unfortunately, I had a conflict in my scheduling with this, and I didn't want to ask everybody to redo their schedule. So we are late into my term, but if there's somebody who would step up to serve in those last couple months in terms of the 2 meetings I think that are left to the end of the year, please either speak up now or reach out after, but we did want to air this with the entire board.
So does that mean that falls on the vice president?
It could if you're stepping up here, Christy.
What days are the meetings on? Like the days of the week?
Erica?
They are every 4th Thursday of every other month from 3 to 5 is what they're currently scheduled at.
I could do that.
All right.
Right.
Anybody want to battle Christy for it? Just kidding. I'm going to take it while I've got it. Thank you so much, Christy. Any other input on this one? All right, we'll go ahead and see if we have any public input on this item. Then I'll bring it back and we'll go ahead and consider that an appointment from the president. Thank you so much, Christy.
President Lopez, I see Director Phillips' hand up. I'm not sure if that's an old hand or if
Yeah, I
he
think
would
it's a
like to
legacy
speak.
hand. Well, don't say old. We just say
No,
more mature. Way
legacy.
to go, Erica. Just kidding, Judge.
Not funny at all.
All right. Yeah, that was a legacy hand. I think that was left from the last item, so we'll come back to that one. Okay, so with that item now complete, we'll head into item 15, a resolution approving a non-binding letter of intent with Republic Services of Salinas defining the terms for negotiating various agreements necessary to relocate and consolidate the Sun Street transfer station operations to Madison Lane Transfer Station. We'll kick that over to you, Patrick.
All right. Well, this is fairly straightforward. I think we've discussed the outline of this letter of intent over the last several board meetings, but I'll briefly go over it. So what the letter of intent does, it really just it defined the structure of the partnership with Republic Services, the various areas where we were going to collaborate, share service, or which roles each of us would take. And so it's been, I just want to start by thanking Jim Pia, Salinas Assistant City Manager, who I know is on the meeting tonight, as well as the City Manager, Steve Kerrigan, for really the great work they both have done in helping to collaborate a good solution here that we think can work for all of us. So with that, the letter of intent, again, it's not binding. It just sets the framework. Some of the items in the letter of intent, we've actually already begun to work on because the intent is to try to move this forward relatively quickly. So the first is a lease. The structure that is being proposed is that the authority would have a long-term lease of a minimum 15 years on Madison Lane, and we would relocate all of our MRC and waste diversion programs to Madison Lane. So we're being leased a space a bit over an acre. It has an existing building on it that once served as the authority's household hazardous waste facility back in the late 90s. And that building is located within the 1+ acre space that they are leasing to us. So basically all of our 939 programs, all the things that are funded, not through tipping fees at the landfill, but through our 939 fees, all those programs would be relocated to Madison Lane on this lease space. And that would be all of our recycling, all of our state funded or subsidized programs like carpet recycling, mattress recycling, all those things would be located on the property. The second component is, and this is related to 1383, is also that the authority would be provided a license, which is just a Republic's fancy term for allowing somebody to work within their workspace, which is inside the transfer station. And we would operate the receiving area for all organic materials. And the reason we want to do that is for several reasons. One is that is our feedback loop. That is where we have the first contact with all the material coming in. It offers an opportunity to clean up that material, particularly curbside green waste in certain areas can be dirtier than other material. You know, the self-haul, the landscapers coming in, they know the rules. That's usually very pure, clean material. Curbside can have contamination in it. So it allows us to pre-clean it. It's easier to clean it coming out of the back of the garbage truck than it is to clean it coming out of the back of the transfer truck at the organics facility at Johnson Canyon. But the feedback loop is also important. You know, doing observations, doing some of the 1383 monitoring of contamination, and being able to identify problem areas that may need additional follow-up public education or enforcement down the road when the enforcement provisions kick in. So all in all, that would be the other piece of this is licensing the operation of just the receiving area. We wouldn't be loading trucks. We'll basically have 2 of our diversion workers and a small skip loader to help push materials around to present contamination so it can be easily removed. And then Republic would be responsible for managing that material inside the transfer station and loading it into trucks. The third piece of the agreement or the defined agreements that we will need is the transportation. Since we already have a pre-existing fleet, Republic has agreed to allow us to continue to transfer or just use our truck and driver, basically. Not loading trucks. Everything inside the transfer station would remain Republic's responsibility in their operation. We would provide our transfer fleet to move that material, all the materials that are destined for Johnson. So single stream recycling materials that may be going to Monterey Regional or elsewhere would be handled by Republic or their internal staff or contractor, and everything that's destined for Johnson, which is primarily refuse, organic material, and construction and demolition material. Those three are the primary materials that we would be hauling for Republic under a transportation agreement. So it'd be in essence a trucking agreement. So those are the three agreements that we have begun work on already with Republic. They've shared with us their template agreements. Council's reviewed those. We've provided some initial comments, discussed general terms for the lease, and those have been converted into a formal lease document itself. So we've actually already started some of this work to stay on a fairly tight schedule to get this done. A few other things that are in the letter of intent of interest. Obviously, the authority wants to retain right of first refusal to purchase Madison Lane at some point in the future if Republic were to decide to sell it, or otherwise no longer provide services like that inside the authority region. So they've offered that as an option. We would have right of first refusal on a sale if that were to happen in the future. We've identified a few other areas of potential negotiation. Those aren't being developed into anything formal at this point, but probably just enhancements to a lot of the work we're already doing around public education, where Mandy and her crew work hand in hand with the public services folks to do things like waste assessments, evaluate needs for commercial businesses, and make recommendations on service upgrades to meet various state and local regulations. And then finally, just designating the fact that Republic, as the owner of the property, maintains the responsibility for CEQA and permitting and environmental compliance, but the authority, where appropriate, would provide them background and help and assistance in those activities as they pertain to us. So that is the core of the letter of intent. Again, not binding at this point. We'll talk about binding documents on the next item. But tonight we're recommending that the board authorize execution of this agreement. We'll turn it over to Republic, and hopefully they'll countersign it within a few days. And this will be the first step towards the partnership. So with that, I will entertain any questions or comments.
Thank you, Patrick. I do see our first hand up from Commissioner Rocha. Commissioner, floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Patrick Matthews. This would not have been possible without all of your collaboration, and certainly the city of Salinas is grateful for our collaborative approach to this. I'm ready to move forward, so I'd like to move to approve the letter of intent. This is all good stuff. Thank you.
Second, Mayor Craig.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any additional conversation before we do a roll call vote and public comment? I see you, Council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to commend Patrick for what he did, but also the city of Salinas and Republic for getting in. We're a hell of a lot better place now than we were a year ago, and or even 6 months ago. And so I like to commend everybody. And Patrick and I have been talking, but since that's going to be in my district, we need some lead time to get out and talk to the people about out in Baranda about the fact that they're going to have a few more trucks coming in and a few more cars coming in. But we have to do some public relations out there as we move forward. But I just wanted to take the time to commend all three entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Phillips. Anybody else? All right, seeing nobody right now, we'll go out and see if we have any public comment. Seeing no hands going up, we'll close the public comment, bring it back, and go ahead and call for the roll call vote.
Director Craig,
Aye.
Director Colin,
Aye.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Phillips,
Aye.
Director Rocha,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Aye.
Alternate Vice President Tipton,
Aye.
Vice President Cromines,
Hallelujah, yes.
and President Lopez.
Amen. Yes. Thank you, Christy, for that leadership there on the hallelujah. I just want to, as we wrap this item, say thank you to everybody. I know we've been down a winding path over the last couple of years, and this was great to see that true collaboration coming together. So thank you to all the partners from the City, Republic, Patrick, and your team. I know that it's been a big lift for everybody to keep us on a timeline, and appreciate this item coming forward so quickly. With that, we have wrapped item 15. We're going to head into item 16, and rather than reading that long title, I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Patrick.
All right. So this is the one I think most of us have actually been waiting for, and that is to resolve the two primary outstanding issues between the authority and City of Salinas, and to get back and begin to do our work collaboratively and as a team again. Not that we haven't always been a team, but we've obviously had some challenges over the last few years. So what you have in front of you is a memorandum of understanding between the authority and the city. And this is as it stands tonight, it's not binding, but there is a provision within this MOU and actions related to the agreements we just discussed. When those are executed and we're bound to the relocation, several things would happen on the city side. The first and most important would be the city would agree to rescind their notice of intent to withdraw. And again, this MOU is conditioned upon the authority executing binding documents, paying deposits, and which is the binding step legally for the authority to move forward with relocation. And so hopefully we'll get those back to you in September is our hope, but we're still in the middle of negotiations. We'll talk a little bit about some of the lease issues during closed session today. The second issue, really the second, third, which are the same thing, is the city agreeing to provide pass-through of the fully loaded published organics processing rates for the authority. And so that would eliminate the subsidy that's been, at least the partial subsidy that's been happening for a number of years and growing as our program costs have gone up to comply with the 1383 regulations. And part of that, the two-part component of that is the city agreeing to pass that through. And we've been assured that has been reflected in their new franchise agreement that is being finalized as we speak. And that we'll be able to see that in a few weeks or sometime in September when that goes forward for public consideration. The second part of that is the old 2004 agreement that the authority signed, and I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm not quite sure why we signed it, but we did. And the unfortunate part with that agreement is it had no termination date. It guaranteed that the Republic Services would continue to send organics to the Johnson Canyon facility, and it established a baseline rate. Well, at that time, organics was a very simple process for us. Mostly it was being ground up, used as mulches, erosion control. Some of it was going off to as a fuel to biomass plants in the Central Valley, where we actually either made a little money or at least broke even. It was a different time. Today with the requirements to divert material and some of the limitations on what we can do with it, obviously the cost for this specific program has grown significantly since 2004. But I will say our rate right now, our fully loaded rate of $50 a ton is actually very competitive even with the private sector market out there. So we feel like the rate is fair and reasonable, and all members, as required under the Joint Powers Agreement, should be paying the same for that service and sharing in that cost. So this will, while the city has no control over that agreement directly, they are not a party to it. It's an agreement that the authority signed with Republic Services. The term of that agreement extends with all extensions of the Republic Service franchise agreement, all restatements. So basically, as long as Republic stays the city's hauler, that agreement would stay in place. Republic has agreed to terminate that agreement. The city, because at one point, I think a few of you that were around a number of years ago, will recall Doug Kenyon, saying multiple times that Republic is okay with it if the city would agree to pass through the rate, and that didn't happen early on. Now the city's agreed to do that. Republic's agreed to terminate it, and the city is being asked to just support that, terminating that agreement and getting us all back on an equal footing. So those are really the three actions associated with the MOU. Assuming the board were to approve this MOU tonight, I've been told this is scheduled for the city's agenda next week. So the city will memorialize this and counter execute it next week, and it will be in place now. Again, it's not binding with the signatures tonight or next week, but would become binding at the moment that the board approves execution of a binding lease agreement with Republic for relocation. With that, I'm available for questions.
I see a hand up from Anthony Rocha. Anthony, we'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Thank you. Once again, I'm super appreciative. I had heard a lot about the board before I got on the board, but I could say since my time being on the board, I've just got a lot more appreciation for trash, number one, but also I've gotten to work with the great people like Patrick. So I appreciate, the collaborative approach about this entire process, and I'm ready to move forward. So I'd like to move to approve this MOU.
And I'll second. Mayor Craig.
All right, so we've got a motion from Rocha, second from Craig. Floor still open for any conversation. I see a hand up from Rob. Rob, we'll give you the floor.
Oh, I wanted to share both on the previous item and this item, just how excited I am, and also I appreciate hearing the other positive comments. I'm excited. I've got a smile on my face. I also just want to commend staff for the simplicity of this thing here. What's the word I'm looking for? Resolution. MOU.
Solution.
And so many times we look at these and they're like mostly Greek. They're hard to read, hard to understand. And I just appreciate the simplicity of this. I think that there's not a lot of things here that are subject to interpretation, which could be an issue. It spells things out very clearly. I think collectively it puts us all on the same page, and I'm excited to move forward.
Thank you, Rob. And, to me, intent is really, really important. And so I just wanted to say that I heard Supervisor Phillips's comments about the potential impacts of our destination, and want to commit myself and ask that every commissioner, as you make this vote, also commit yourself to assisting in that process. While we may not all represent that area, we all have wide reaching networks that do expand into that area. And it's going to take all of us lifting to help make this the solution that we all want and need it to be. So just continue to give my commitment to Supervisor Phillips to be a partner in making this happen, and ask that everybody who has a feeler, a connection, a relation in that neighborhood to do the same. And with that, I see Mayor Craig's hand up. Mayor Craig.
Thank you. And I wouldn't be a good mayor without at least addressing, the letter of withdrawal came with certain requirements, which included things like governance of, the Solid Waste Authority. But in understanding and recognizing that really getting Sun Street out of the center of our town being the primary issue, really, the direction for staff and the encouragement of compromise was to move forward with this as the biggest the biggest issue. And so I just, I maintain, and I'm on record, I still have concerns over governance, but I recognize that this moves the ball down the field. So happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go to VP Cromings.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mute off. I appreciate it, Chris. I too want to echo that I am just tickled as punch that we're here today and we're doing this. This has been a long road for me, and one of the items that I really wanted to see come to fruition while I was serving on the council and on this board. So I appreciate everybody's efforts. To Supervisor Phillips, this is my district as well. So I am dedicated to making sure that we work together to get the information out there to those constituents and make sure that they understand, what is going on, and that we make this transition as easy as possible for them.
VP Cromings, and I see a hand up from Patrick Matthews. Back to our general manager.
I just wanted to I don't want us to take all the credit for this. Actually, Roy's office, Roy and Michelle have done outstanding job, helping us put together these agreements, both the memorandum of understanding, reviewing and timely comment on the letter of intent, as well as the work they're currently doing with us on both the lease and the transportation agreements. So we couldn't have done any of this without a great legal team in the background. They've really helped push this forward for us and keep it on track.
Lots of credit to be shared on this one. Great job, Roy, and everybody who had a hand in this pot. It was a lot of mixing, but we got her done. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Erica. I'm sorry, I need to go out for public comment. I see Roy nodding at me. Almost incurred the wrath. Is there any public comment on this one? Seeing no hands going up, we will close the public comment portion, and I'll bring it back and ask Erica to take us through a roll call.
Director Craig?
Aye.
Director Colin?
Aye.
Director Jimenez?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Aye.
Director Rocha?
Yes, sorry, I was unmuted.
Director Silva?
Aye.
Alternate Vice President Tipton?
Aye.
Vice President Cromings?
Yes.
And President Lopez?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you all. And with that, we have concluded item 16, and we'll head into our agenda items view ahead schedule. And I'll kick that back to Patrick.
All right. Thank you. So again, we got a busy fall. Hopefully we can complete all of the authorities' needed work for the rest of this calendar year and give the board another recess in December. But right now, we have a pretty busy coming up several months. September in particular, obviously, we're hoping that we'll get through the negotiations on the agreements and things, and that we can bring those back in September. Right now, the schedule is to do that to help the city meet their planned release of the franchise agreement, which is going to happen almost concurrently with our consideration of those two agreements. So those are front and center for this month, for September. We'll also bring back, again, as I said earlier, start the discussion on strategic planning. And then we have our typical updates on the authority, our annual report, Employee of the Year recognition, some of the feel-good things we like to do at the beginning of the fall every year. Those items will also be on the schedule for September. So if there's anything the board would like to add, delete, or modify for next month, feel free to speak up now or reach out to Erica and I in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Patrick. Anything out there that anybody who wants to make sure we get on a future agenda and they want to share now? All right, quiet bunch. We'll take it out to the public and see if there's anything that the public wants to see on a future agenda. Seeing no hands going up, we'll close that public comment and bring it back. And with that, we have concluded our future agenda items at this point. I believe we do have a closed session. Given the earlier remarks, I'll remind our commissioners that or our board members that the email containing the links for that particular session were sent out at 2:21 by Erica. So check your emails if you need that closed session link. And with that, we will go ahead and recess to closed session. And thank you all for attending. Maybe we'll see you when we come back.
President Lopez?
Yes.
We
I'm
need
sorry,
to-
public comment,
Yes, sir.
right? See, I did it again. All right, any public comment on closed session items? Seeing no hands, we'll close that. We'll now recess to closed session. Okay, can you confirm, Erica, that we have a quorum with us?
Let me see, there's a few people that need to be moved over. Rosie, can you allow me to move them over? Or can you move them over, please? Thank you. We do have a quorum.
All right, great. And we're going to go ahead and reconvene our open session here for the Solid Waste Authority. And I'm going to turn to council and see if there's anything to report out of closed session.
Nothing to announce out at this time, President.
Great, thank you. Then with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much for a great night of work. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.